Hello guys, I'm Su. It's been a while that I haven't made videos. Sometimes I want to talk about everything. I want to talk too much, and sometimes I get depressed and don't want to talk anything. That's why it's quite random that I make videos or do not make videos. But today I just received a link from my friend, and he showed me a video in which there was a Dutch historian talking about Chinese academia and also analyze the Chinese political philosophy. And I must say that's something I completely disagree with and would denounce immediately, actually. That's why I want to make this video. And this video will be on the topic of how the West propaganda constantly tries to demonize Chinese Confucianism. The most typical demonization of Confucianism, as was shown in the video my friend sent to me, was to see Confucianism as moral perfection, as moral utopianism. You want to build a utopian society, something. That's how they try to show what Confucianism was about. However, this was completely nonsense, and this utopian thinking was the fundamental thing Chinese Confucianism was firmly rejected. Confucianism has 4 fundamental books called 4 books, 四书. It consists of 论语, 孟子, 中庸, 大学. And 中庸is one of the most important ones. It means the Tao of middle, or goes in the middle. This book actually shows you the art of life, the art of behavior, the art of being a gentleman is to be in the middle, to do everything in the middle, not this extreme or that extreme. And for political life, you should always be in the middle. There's a famous Chinese saying, 过犹不及, which means if you do too much, it's just like you're not doing it. It shows you the art of being in the middle. So for social life, for example, a politician should never try to achieve something called utopia, because that's impossible. That's too idealistic. But you should also not reject human society as a whole, as if any laws should not apply, or we are unable to build a good society at all, or something. Like we must live in jungle law society or something like that. That's also horrible. These are 2 extremes. And Zhongyong, the Tao of middle, rejects both. They say we must go in the middle, so not reach kind of utopian or live in jungle laws, something like that. Actually, the word China, in Chinese, the word itself means the middle kingdom. It doesn't mean China. China is the wrong word, actually. China is the middle kingdom. If you learn Chinese, you will know that the formal name of China is the Middle Kingdom. The Middle Kingdom firmly rejects either moral perfection, utopian, or moral nihilism. But this way of thinking is too hard for the Western people to understand, because from a Western mind, you're either moral perfection or moral nihilism. And then they fight each other to reach Hegelian synthesis. That's why after the fall of Christianity, the West went into moral nihilism. Because before that, it was moral perfectionism, the Catholic society. It goes from one extreme to another extreme. And then you have communism, and communism revive the moral perfectionism again. the moral perfectionism or moral utopianism, however, the Western scholars accused China, was completely a culture product of communism, and it had nothing to do with Chinese Confucianism at all. My parents' generation experienced communism to its full extent, and I also experienced communism to more than half of its extent, I would say. And after I came to the West, after I spent almost 2 years in England and almost 8 years in Netherlands, I found out that communism society, the communism ideology, is completely Christian. It's completely Christian. The European Christian society work in exact way as how communism society works. The people's mindset, how events are organized, how people process religious rituals and everything. Communism imposed the kind of propaganda, the way of forcible propaganda on its organized collective people in exactly the same way as how Christian priests preach to people, gather them in churches and stuff. And both of them have very ritual activities and preach perfect paradise stuff and paint very global goals, objectives, and try to picture a perfect world, something like that, and deliberately deny the terrible things that is going on in the society. This is something exactly the same between Christian society and hardcore communism society. In Cultural Revolution of China, two groups of Red Guards, the young people, young Red Guards, nationwide, fought against each other in a very bloody way, kill each other, and both of them declare absolute loyalty to Chairman Mao, and both of them denounce the other part as against Chairman Mao or something like that. This was a pure religious war. This was a pure religious war that had never happened in the 5,000 years Chinese history. Such religious wars only happened again and again in European history, and it's been perfectly reincarnated in China's Cultural Revolution between the two groups of Red Guards. I don't have too much time to talk too many details in this video, but I want to mention two names, two Western names. One is Karl Joachim Friedrich. Karl Joachim Friedrich. He's a German philosopher, German-American philosopher who taught in Harvard University, I believe. And he was one of the most important writers on totalitarianism in the 20th century. He had a famous book, Totalitarian Dictatorship. And in this book, he showed you very clearly that communism is deeply rooted in Christianity. And both Christianity and communism were completely alien to China. Both Christianity and communism were completely alien to China, but was put in China like colonization, actually. And another author I want to mention is Eric Voegelin. Eric Voegelin, a German philosopher who wrote a book, Political Religion. it's a book that's worth researching actually, because it shows you how the modern totalitarianism are actually political religions. It is deeply religious. What I need to mention a bit more is that Karl Joachim Friedrich was actually a student from Alfred Weber, who was the brother of Max Weber. So in certain sense, he's from the German historical school. If you understand academia, you will know that there's always a war. There's always academic war between the German historical school and the Austria-Chicago school, the so-called New Classical or New Liberal school. And anyone who accused China's so-called utopianism as coming from Confucianism is for sure coming from the New Liberal school, from the Austrian Chicago school, so to speak. This school basically fabricates everything. Actually, they make up everything, and they call themselves New Classical school. And if you know the reality, actually they reject all the classical works. They reject all the classicism as a whole, actually. So they are actually anti-classical school, and they call themselves New Classical school. Professor Hudson or Professor Richard Wolff, for example, understand this point very well. Actually, they talked about it quite a few times, I believe. By the way, the biggest similarity between Christianity and communism is that both of them worship one human God. Christianity worship Jesus Christ as a human God, and communism in Russia worship Stalin, and in China worship Chairman Mao as one human God. The problem in China nowadays is that many communists lose their faith in old communism, and there's a gap there, and they naturally convert to Christianity. So in China, many communists are secretly Christians, actually. The new liberal schools in America, or American government in general, actually invested a lot of effort and money in demonizing Chinese Confucianism. For example, there's a Chinese historian Yu Yingshi. He was a Harvard professor, and he died a few years ago. He was considered as the most famous living historian in our time. And his teacher, Qian Mu, was actually the greatest Chinese historian in 20th century. And his works are really masterpieces. Actually, many of my points that I talked about in my previous videos were from or inspired by Qian Mu. Qian Mu sees very high of Chinese history and Chinese culture, and really dislike how modern West violated Chinese culture and demonized Chinese history, and also put in puppets in the academia of China. He really didn't like it. He exposed all the lies that the West spread about China, and recovered many historical truths of China based on very reliable, irrefutable ancient Chinese materials and historical resources. So Yu Yingshi, as the student of Qian Mu, naturally bears a very high reputation in the whole Chinese-speaking world. But when Yu Yingshi served in Harvard University, he one day said something very bizarre, very unusual, very completely against his teacher's Chen Mu's mindset. He said something like communism in China comes from Confucianism and has nothing to do with Christianity. This statement was too bizarre and too intrusive that you can hardly believe that it's coming from a student from Chen Mu. So I can imagine what American government could have done to him. Like some agents from CIA or whatever, go to his house and say, hey, you have to now make this statement or we're going to make you disappear or something. As I said, there is a war there. There is an info war there, information war, not only in the media, but in the academia, even more harshly there. The new liberal schools not only tried to demonize China and demonize Confucianism, but also tried to demonize all the classical great works as a whole, actually. For example, people like Hayek, Popper, especially Popper, actually he denied Plato's Republic as a whole, say this is a book of totalitarianism. This is a book of how to teach you to make a totalitarian society, actually. Because in Plato's Republic, Socrates actually tell you that monarchy is the best political system, and democracy is the second worst, and democracy leads to tyranny, dictatorship. So the second worst leads to the worst political system, and this is something Popper definitely doesn't like. And by the way, I find Leo Strauss's opinion on Plato's Republic very interesting, because first he shows you that Republic in ancient Greek actually means regime. It means regime. It doesn't mean republic, actually. Plato's regime, not Plato's Republic. And second, he shows you that, well, this book is only talking about the nature of politics, but not literally how to build a perfect kingdom or something like that. And Leo Strauss's way of talking, in my opinion, is just, from his own words, exoteric writing. It's just to say something indirectly that is only to be understood by the few, not by the majority. That's why his statements on many things are quite contradictory in itself. But he said by himself, if two statements are contradictory in the same book, it means one is false, the other is true. So Leo Strauss was actually scared of American politics, actually. He doesn't want to get into problems because he doesn't want to be labeled as anti-liberal democracy. And it could cause serious problems for him, actually. And the reason why Leo Strauss was popular in Chinese academia was for the similar reason that the Chinese scholars cannot say openly against communism. They must express their opinions within the framework of Marx-Leninism, communism. So they must say things and not too straightforward, but exoterically. That's why they like Leo Strauss. And in today's China, this is not a very sensitive topic anymore compared to, for example, 10 years ago. That's why nowadays you often hear from China that we don't want any ideological wars. We don't want to engage in any ideological nonsense, and we don't export ideologies. If the West, if you like ideologies, you play with it. We don't like it at all. We don't want it, and we don't want to be labeled with any ideological labels. And we just want to solve our practical issues, economic problems, political economic problems, and just forget about ideologies. But I personally still prefer the Marxist ideologies to be maintained and kept in China for people to follow, because another danger I'm seeing right now is some Chinese people without ideologies start to convert to Christianity, and I really dislike it. I know what kind of shit Christianity brought to Europe in medieval times and in Roman times. I don't want that repeat in China. Okay, guys, I just keep their content short today, and no need for making long videos, and to give a conclusion why the West academia tried to demonize Confucianism, because they want to hide their own Christian ideological problems, and they project their Christian mind, their Christian ideological mind on Confucianism. And that's what they are doing. Thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you next time. Bye.